Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Elder Joke Shimajin Sa. I want to take this time to articulate to each and every person hearing my voice the difference between ideology and revolutionary ideology. We define ideology as the systematic, cultural, political, ideological, economic, historical experiences of a people over time. The ideology is the systematic views which are historically evolved by definitive stages of social development, by definitive social groups, which vary according to those social groups' origin. Revolutionary ideology is the same systematic views, but these views have been evolved in the course of seeking fundamental social, cultural, economic, political, and moral change. They are transformative. Revolutionary ideology is just that. It's revolutionary. That means it seeks to change one course of action, one behavior, one particular way of doing things, and move toward a different way of doing things. There's a lot of different ways we can break this down and articulate, but perhaps one of the most viable ways to articulate a revolutionary ideology is embodied in the concept of transfer culture. Transfer culture are the cultural transformation of the values, practices, and relationships of a people, which prepares the conditions for revolutionary social change of a people that happens to be oppressed by another people. Transfer culture provides the rational dynamic, the calculation, if you will, for the developing strategy of a system of social change, progressive social change, i.e. revolution. It uproots and destroys the old oppressive rationale and mindset of colonial society, and it introduces new values which move the people outside of that colonial mindset onto the emerging revolutionary society. Revolutionary ideology allows you to think outside the dominant confines of the dominant culture. In this case, we live in the United States of America in 2024, in an age where the system of global white supremacy and the global capitalist construct has plunged this world into a world of haves and have-nots. But they have done so with such insidious efficiency that the very origin of the primitive accumulation of capital, which is the shadow slave era, they have convinced the exact same descendants of the people they brutalized and enslaved to amass this monolith of wealth and greed to identify with their interests, to actually want to be like their oppressor, to actively aid in their own oppression, to even celebrate it in music, in social practice, by viewing something as insane, as poisoning your own community with narcotics, as being a viable basis for economic empowerment. It's called the success brainwashing method. It is perhaps the most dialectically opposite mindset from that of those that hold genuine revolutionary ideology as theirs. Revolutionary ideology seeks to introduce a new way of living, one that is viable. What do we mean by viable? Viability means something is life-giving. That means it ensures your continued survival and good health. Revolutionary ideology seeks to move our minds out of this hyper individualism, this I and me mentality, which has been responsible for our division, death, and oppression for well over 496 years, into a mindset where we understand on functional level that the burdens of life are lighter or more than one hand is carried. Where we understand on a functional level that unity is strength and division is weakness. That we understand on a functional level that if we cooperate with one another, we can reach our goals more efficiently and effectively than we can if we compete against one another. Revolutionary ideology leads us to the inescapable conclusion that those who currently dominate the institutions of our society, which are responsible for our education, our healthcare, our politics, our economic systems, our employment or unemployment, our concept of security itself, are the same individuals who are responsible for its perpetual endangerment. The very same cats that's asking you to now come out and vote for me are the same individuals responsible for orchestrating the policies which have created the conditions in your community that you seek to change. I want you to understand what I'm finna say as clearly as you understand water is wet. There has never been a path to liberation paved by your oppressor. It never has been, nor will it ever be. The paths they pave lead only to a new form of oppression. They call it reform. You hear them on the pulpit. You hear them at the rallies. You hear them at the speeches. You see them on the talking heads on news every day. Education reform, economic reform, social reform, police reform, educational reform, justice reform. Yet every cycle, every 10 to 20 years, there is a need for new reform. But the problem never abates. You never have enough food, enough employment, enough education. You never have enough. And that's because same individuals that are articulating this need and desire for reform represent a scant 2% of the population, which holds within its hands 99% of the wealth, and have convinced you that you need to scramble and fight over the 1% that they have left behind for the remaining 98. As opposed to changing social conditions to where 98% of the wealth is in the hands of 98% of the people. That is a reality. That is a calculus that they never want you to bring to bear, and one they never want you to make. It's the reason why in this society they abhor critical thinking. They abhor revolutionary ideology, which is predicated upon dialectical analysis, i.e., critical thinking. Instead, they want you to imbibe what to think. They tell you on social media what to think. They tell you on the news what to think. They tell you in school what to think, never how to think. For those individuals who actively seek to liberate the minds of the masses, i.e., revolutionaries, they castigate us as terrorists, criminals, evil, radicals, off base. I can think of 101 different false terms and characterizations that they have sought to label those who genuinely love the people and demonstrate that love in social practice with. They probably done called us a little bit of everything. But the truth of the matter is revolutionary ideology is the only construct of the mind which actively seeks to change social conditions to ensure the betterment of all, not a select few. That seeks to introduce genuine freedom, justice, equality, and an upholding of human rights. Not merely the recitation of the idea, hope, and aspiration for such things. Revolutionary ideology is ideology that is predicated upon cooperative economics, collective work and responsibility, principles of collective life, where I don't think I'm well off unless I know my brothers and sisters are equally well off. That I view the interest of my fellow man as though they are my own. And they, in turn, view my interests as their own. This is a different way of thinking. It's a new way of thought. It's transformative in its purpose. It's dynamic in its application. It's liberating in its social application and practice. It is true, genuine revolution. When you hear that term, oftentimes people get this idea of armed struggle, of insurrection. That is the most small, rudimentary aspect of what revolution may potentially look like. And even that idea itself is only representative of those forces which will seek to kill you to maintain the status quo, and our own forces. Necessity to ensure and assert our own self-defense. That's not the main thrust of revolution. The main primary revolutionary transformation occurs in the mind. It is liberating your mind from 496 years of acculturation, of assimilation to the mind state of the capitalist class. Those individuals who own the means of production. Those individuals that control the means of distribution. I'm not talking about the other 98% of us that are merely cogs in their vast machine of hate, misery, and death. Some of you are hearing my voice right now and you're saying to yourself, well, I go to work every day. I work 8 hours, make a decent wage. I got a nice car in the driveway, watching the game on the TV, and I got a cold beer in my hand. Life ain't all that bad. But for that cold beer in your hand, it's at least 20 children starving. For that car in your driveway, it's another 100 walking. For that TV that you enjoying, it's people in the tenement somewhere that's huddled around a single heater trying to keep their hands warm. Yeah, you got that. And they gave it to you. But what type of person wants to live in a world where just your basic survival and good health means that you must preside over the human misery of hundreds, thousands, and in some cases millions belittle others? What type of person does that make any of us? If that's something we're comfortable with. Revolutionary ideology is not comfortable in such a world. They hate oppression, all injustice, and the malignant sickness of bourgeois society, and they seek to change it through revolution, through transforming the fundamental relationships in society, our very concept of what freedom is. We don't know what freedom is because we've been told that handing your power over to some elected official is freedom. Freedom is not the absence of burden of responsibility. Freedom is accepting the burden of that responsibility. It's actively being part of the process of governing what goes on in your own community. Whether them kids down the street that you see running up and down the street and stealing stuff out the corner store, why you think they doing it? Because they ain't got nothing to eat at home because their mama strung out on dope. But why is their mama strung out on dope? Because the one that sold it to them, they poor. They want to stop being poor. So they go get a sack from the local dope man and try to flip it. But why does the local dope man know that there is a market in a community that is economically, socially, and politically oppressed for his poison? Because they have structured a society that ensures that human misery that people seek the escape of narcotics addiction from is there. Revolutionary ideology seeks to change that entire dynamic by removing the very desire itself for escape. Instead, revolutionary ideology seeks to create a world where you embrace the very processes of social life because they're so beautiful. Humans are social creatures. We are literally evolutionarily adapted to function together. Yet we live in a society that wants you to believe it's all about you. It's all about I. It's all about me. And the truth of the matter is, it has always been about us. And that we will always be more powerful than I. That there exists no power on this planet more powerful than the people. Revolutionary ideology articulates that in every area of people activity with a program, with an initiative, with a process by which you can change the very nature and structure of your society.
Is revolutionary ideology flawed?
If you are a ultra right-wing, conservative, fascist, revolution, of course, is flawed from your perspective and standpoint. And that's because you maintain your affiliation with powerful and continuing nationalism. You have an absolute disdain for the recognition of human rights. You engage in the identification of enemies and scapegoats as a unifying cause. Your perspective on social life is the supremacy of the military. That you are absolute patriarchal, authoritarian sexist. That women should be kept in their place. You believe in a controlled mass media where you can't be criticized for your bullshit. You're absolutely obsessed with national security. You ensure that religion and government are intertwined even though everybody don't share your particular religious view. Your perspective on social life is that corporate power is to be protected, while the power of the worker is to be suppressed. You have an absolute disdain for intellectuals and the arts because this actually promotes critical thinking. You have an obsession with crime and punishment, even though criminal rates for every metric of crime in this country has been on a steady decline for the last 30 years. There's rampant cronyism and corruption with the particular view of the right-wing conservative. And there is this ironic belief in fraudulent elections, when in fact it is these very same elements which seek to curtail access to the polls to ensure that elections actually are fraudulent in their favor. To those individuals, I would say this: I challenge you to find a single untrue or incorrect aspect of revolutionary ideology. I challenge you to engage in the practices of unity and social cooperation and articulate to the people how those are flawed. Now, from an objective standpoint, there are no absolutes, comrade. What we speak of as revolutionary social change has never occurred in the history of human civilization. So is it flawed? We don't know. But we do know what is flawed: fascism. We've seen it in Germany under Hitler. We've seen it in Latin America under Pinochet. We've seen it in Indonesia under Suharto. We've seen it in Spain under Franco. We've seen it in Italy under Mussolini, and we're seeing it right now in the United States under Trump, under Nixon, under Reagan. Fascism endures. Fascism is here now. It's not coming. You're experiencing it right now. Is fascism flawed? Is the ideas of the right-wing conservative flawed? You damn right they flawed. We got an unredacted historical record to prove that fact, Jack. But I tell you what's not flawed: that unity is strength and division is weakness. Ain't nothing flawed about that. What's not flawed is there's enough food on this planet where don't nobody got to be hungry. Ain't nothing flawed about that. It's a fact. There's enough knowledge on this planet where don't nobody got to be ignorant. Ain't nothing flawed about that. That's a fact. It's enough housing in this country alone that no one in this nation need be homeless. That's a fact. Ain't nothing flawed about that. The difference between the revolutionary and the right-wing conservative is we only have one stock in trade, and that's the truth. They, on the other hand, must rely on lies, idealism, simplifications of the truth, even alternative facts, which is just a cute way of saying I'm telling the motherfucking lie. We don't lie. We only got one stock in trade. It's the truth. We deal in facts. The philosophical cornerstone of everything we say or do is dialectical materialism, which is concrete analysis of concrete conditions. We don't pull shit out of our ass and call it reality. We point to reality and call it reality. That's the difference between the revolutionary and the reactionary. Yes, right-wing conservatives are reactionaries by definition. So anybody who has the assumption, assertion, or opinion that revolutionary ideology is flawed, I challenge you to prove it. You couldn't if you wanted to. This revolution is yet to realize its victorious change of society. When that time comes, you're free to criticize as all you want. I don't think nobody's going to listen when every belly is full, when every head has a roof, when every mind is educated, when every hand has viable work it can do and be proud of, when people actually are living in harmony and not hate. Yeah, I challenge you to do that. Think on these things. It calls for great meditation.